And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what is going on in the world today. We'll take a look at some clips from the news and have a little bit of dialogue from those of you who are able to join us for the live portion. And of course, if you are listening anywhere else and you would like to join the live portion, you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, on Coffee Talk, and on Prepper University, and that is at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat, and you can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. As we get ready to jump off here, being joined by a single feline today, and that would be Monkey, who is laying in the chair behind me. You can probably see him there, cleaning himself up. Maybe he'll stick around for the length of the show. No other felines in the room. I'm supposed to be getting, I've been put off so many times by the current agency that I'm trying to work with to get some of this clouder of cats in the backwoods here spayed and or neutered and vaccinated and whatever else they want to do to them. And some of you know already that I had spoken to a group already, and they were supposed to come out Wednesday and canceled, and they were supposed to be here today at 8 a.m. and canceled, and then moved it to noon and canceled. Yeah, it's amazing how unreliable it all is. Go ahead and greet some of the people that have chosen to chime in for the live portion. I see Helter is here, Dragon is here, Brian is here, Sven from Michigan, Cyberjack Sr. has Drupal, M. Young is here, JJ, I'm trying to get it. There we go, JJ. Undercover, who says it notified me on time this time. That's a miracle. Dilo is here. And has Drupal just worked a 12-hour shift before a 14-hour fast. 14-hour fast. A 72-hour fast will completely clean out your system. Just saying. Well, almost. It'll help quite a bit, actually. 72 hours is right in that sweet spot. Take my word for it. Anyways, and H12 has joined us here. Glad you all could make it today. Not too bashful to say hello. But yeah, working on that before we get into the news. And this is the least expensive service that I can find, which would be out of pocket, which I'll probably end up doing a crowdfund for to help to compensate for whatever it's going to cost, because I get at least 12 that need services. At least 12. Nature says Boeing machinist, IAM rejects contract, 64%. Now other companies like Sprint Airlines are getting 21-day layoffs or furloughs. Unions, they're going to bust this country up. They're going to bust it up. You already know how I feel about unions, having been affiliated with, been in 4. 2 of them were technically Teamsters, but different divisions. So really 3 if you count the Teamsters twice, but 4 unions. They were useless. Absolutely useless. Speaking of useless, we may as well jump to the Biden administration. You want to talk useless? I got useless for you. Daily Caller article. As Monkey is chiming in, glad you could make it. And Has Drupal says they did a 72-hour fast last month. Okay, there you go. A lot of people don't realize how important that is. And also, because they start getting nervous when they feel those hunger pangs. And that's P-A-N-G-S, pang, not pain. Those hunger pangs start gnawing at you. But they go away after a little bit. And then you're fine for days. You'd be surprised. Especially if you've done it before. But Daily Caller article, GOP lawmakers press Biden and Harris administration over alleged cover-ups behind major fossil fuel crackdown. Yeah, wait till you hear this one. 45 GOP lawmakers are demanding answers from the Department of Energy after a government watchdog group accuses the agency of covering up a key study that would have interfered with one of the Biden-Harris administration's most aggressive crackdowns on fossil fuels. What? You mean they suppressed information to fit their agenda? I can't imagine a government doing that. The lawmakers wrote to Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm on Thursday to address a watchdog's allegations that her agency conducted or drafted and then quietly buried a study on the emissions impacts of liquefied natural gas exports in 2023 before pausing approvals for certain LNG export terminals in January on the grounds that the agency needed to conduct such a review. Government accountability and oversight, the watchdog making the allegations, is suing the agency under public records law to obtain thousands of pages of DOA concedes may fit pages DOA concede. Oh, I see. I read that incorrectly. The thousands of pages DOA concedes may fit GAO's specific request searching for the 2023 study that the agency allegedly buried because it was producing politically inconvenient conclusions, as first reported by the Daily Caller News Foundation. Quote, the Biden-Harris administration's attempt to conceal its findings on liquefied natural gas impacts is troubling. Despite evidence that U.S. LNG benefits both the economy and global energy security, the Department of Energy has imposed an indefinite ban on LNG exports to non-free trade agreement countries without legal justification. So they had information and they buried it so that they could fit the agenda. And Kimberly has joined us. Glad you could make it. JJ says, yes, the Biden administration setting the bar to a new low. None of us knew the bar could go that low. And of course, when you set the bar low enough, all you can do is crawl under it. All you can do to keep going low is crawl under it. It's horrible. It's horrible, the position that we're all in now because of people like this and decisions like this. They buried the information and they got caught. Watchdog group found them out. Lawmakers in Congress want answers. Maybe they'll get them, maybe they won't. But like I'm always asking, well, maybe they'll find some answers. What do you think is going to be done about it if they get the answers they're looking for? What's going to be done about it? Nature Nerd says, what do you think of the company that can shine sunlight from a mirror in space to any point in the earth, even at night, on a solar farm? I don't know. Sounds like a good opportunity for mischief. It really does. But yeah, I mean, technically you could do that. The technology exists that you could do that. Since we're on the Biden-Harris administration, we may as well get on to Harris as this gets exposed. And I see Fluke Man is here. Glad you could make it today. I wonder if Rodney is in here today. I've got some news from New Zealand that is very impactful. New York Post article, Kamala Harris is the original defunder of the police and lies about her time as a prosecutor. Kamala Harris is the original defunder of the police for overseeing the shutdown of a key anti-drug unit, keeping gangs and fentanyl out of California, according to former agents from that department, who say she also boasts about cases that she had no hand in. Surprise! And we had talked about this before, that now that her prosecution record as district attorney in San Francisco has been coming forward, she really did not do a very good job at all. Back to the article, despite often touting her great experience personally prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, including at a CNN town hall this week, the Democratic presidential nominee during her tenure as Attorney General of California oversaw the shutdown of the State Bureau of Narcotics Enforcement in 2012. Quote, she could have fought the closure, but she didn't. I think her lack of action showed that she wanted it, according to Carrie Cavalieri, a former special agent with the Department of Justice, adding, Kamala Harris was the original defunder of the police. Cavallari and other former agents also called out Harris, claiming she never actually prosecuted transnational drug or gang cases. They say she merely presided over arrests made by any number of state and federal agencies during her tenure. is basically she took credit. She didn't have anything to do with it, but she took credit. And can someone tell me why that man on the right is wearing red pants with his suit? Can someone explain that to me, please? Who wears red slacks with their suit? I know, I got distracted. I got distracted. Oh, the actual prosecution of the cases were made by local district attorneys or federal agencies, they said, but Harris claimed to have been the prosecutor to make it seem as if she cracked down on serious crime, even after the BNE was dismantled 2 years into her term as the Attorney General. There we are. It says right here, she was there for the photo op after things went down, according to Cavalieri. Every stump speech she talks about prosecuting big cases. It's a lie. She didn't prosecute any of those big drug gang cases. This is how she's gotten where she is. She simply says she did this or that, and no one checks her. It's all smoke and mirrors. California's BNE was formed in 1927 and was the oldest drug enforcement agency in the country. And this is what he's accusing her of. She would show up for a photo op, tell the press that she had something to do with it, but it was all a lie. All a lie. Hasdrubal says they banned fireplaces in new build in Ireland a couple of years back. Now they want to ban chimneys in existing residences. That's nuts. That is nuts. Flukeman says, what do you think will happen if Trump loses? Riots, civil war, assassinations. I don't know about, there might be some rioting. There might be some rioting. Civil war, I don't think so. I don't see that happening. Assassinations, I don't know about that. They certainly won't be able to get to her. Nature Nerd says Hillary wears red slacks. And Cyberjack says undercover Santa Claus. That just threw me off. You know how I am. I notice things in pictures that probably a lot of people don't see. But yeah, according to this agent that was in charge of this division that she shut down in 2012, the Bureau of Narcotics Enforcement, which apparently was the oldest narcotics enforcement bureau in the United States at that time, that she would just show up for photo ops and take credit, and that she didn't actually do anything. Didn't actually do anything. And that does not surprise me. That really doesn't surprise me at all. Taking credit for things that you didn't do to bullshit your way through your political career, which is why she's not able to answer any questions when she's cornered. Someone asks her a legitimate question, she can't respond because she doesn't have a response. She doesn't have a response. While we're on the subject, though, of lies and corruption, we're still on the Biden administration here. It's going to be a Fox News article coming up. Fox News article. Ohio Secretary of State sues the Biden administration for obstructing the removal of non-citizen registered voters. That's interesting. And I heard this is also happening in Pennsylvania, not just Ohio, but Pennsylvania as well. Ohio's Secretary of State Frank LaRose sued President Biden's administration on Thursday, accusing officials of obstruction and outright abuse of power. The lawsuit filed in the U.S. Southern District of Ohio says the Department of Homeland Security refused on multiple occasions to grant access to federal records that are, quote, necessary to prevent non-citizens from voting. LaRosa's office has conducted a rolling audit of the state's voter rolls ahead of election, and he has previously told Fox News that the state-level records can only take the process so far. Quote, I swore an oath to uphold our state constitution, and that document clearly requires that only United States citizens can participate in Ohio elections. LaRose said in a statement, the Biden-Harris administration is engaging in obstruction and outright abuse of power to prevent us from removing non-citizens from our voter rolls. I take my duty seriously, so if they want to fight over the integrity of our elections, they've got it. You won't get anything done in time for Election Day. It's almost here. The lawsuit claims there were 4 instances in which Ohio's requests for access to federal records were denied. Ohio's audit relies on analysis and cross-checks against records provided by the Ohio Bureau of Motor Vehicles, the DHS Systematic Alien Verification for Entitlements database, the Social Security Administration, federal jury pool data, and other resources. So they cross-reference everything just to make sure there aren't too many people on the ballot or on the voting roster that shouldn't be there, is what he's saying. While LaRosa's office can access the SAVE database, and of course the SAVE database, again, is the systematic alien verification for entitlements database. States using it have to pay $1.50 for each query for records, and finding the information required to properly search the data is cumbersome, LaRose says. So they got to pay $1.50 per record. That's a load of shit. So much for interdepartmental cooperation, right? Nature Nerd says the sad thing is most people don't know how to use chimneys anymore when they need to use it, resulting in deaths in Texas every time they have a storm. Some chimneys in people's homes are also fake and just decorative, which is dangerous to use. Yeah, I know. Think about it. We're at a point now in human society where people don't know how to start a fire. Hey, I had trouble. You already know, when I worked for JJA, we had the resources classes when we had the life skills, and these kids couldn't tie their shoes. Didn't know how to use a broom, didn't know how to wash dishes, couldn't run a washing machine, didn't know how to use the oven. It's incredible. And I can just imagine, it doesn't surprise me at all that people have fireplaces or chimneys and don't know how they function, don't know how they work. JJ says it would appear that Biden administration is hampering the ability of states to have a fair election. Wouldn't that count as election interference? Yes, it would, but good luck. Good luck. Good luck. And Kimberly says, how many early votes have already slipped through for non-U.S. citizens? That's the key question. And that's why also Pennsylvania is having a problem, because they're recalling thousands already. They're recalling and re-examining thousands of mail-in ballots because they can't be properly verified. So that's why I had mentioned it earlier. It's already a problem. It's already a problem, but it was set up. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do because it was already set up to cause problems. It was already set up to cause interference. And here we are. And now this guy's going to run a lawsuit, La Rosa. But are you going to get your lawsuit wrapped up before November 5th? It's going to be too late. It's going to be too late by then. And then what? What the hell are they supposed to do? So yeah, it's doing exactly what it is supposed to do. Rodney, you're not here today? You're not here today? I got one I'm holding out on for Rodney. Because it's New Zealand. It's news from New Zealand. While we're on the subject of corruption. On the subject of corruption, and I believe this is another Daily Caller article. So we pop this up. Oh, one more here from Nature Nerd before I open it. It says over 100,000 illegal votes in Nevada and Arizona, and those are small states as far as population goes. How many in bigger states? Lord knows. I bet the people that set it up can't even tell. I bet they don't even know. And it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. Daily Caller, reeks of corruption. Son of high-ranking Democrat raked in hundreds of thousands from his father's campaign, according to lobbyists. There it is again, it's incredible, another Democrat. And I've been talking about this a lot lately, that it seems like every time I read an article that has corruption, misuse or misappropriation of funds, nepotism, or anything like that, it's a Democrat lawmaker. Practically every time. And Moki has joined us. Glad you could pop in today, Moki. Article reads, the son of Massachusetts Democrat Representative Richard Neal, leader of the House Ways and Means Committee, raked in hundreds of thousands of dollars in consulting fees from his father's campaign and pressure groups who were actively lobbying his dad on tax policy, according to Politico. Richard Neal's son, Brendan Neal, launched a one-person public affairs firm offering, quote, political advice, lobbying, and strategic communications in 2020, roughly 1 year after his father became the ranking member on Ways and Means, the sole congressional committee with jurisdiction to introduce federal tax legislation. Brendan Neal went on to receive a total of $196,340 from his father's campaign fund for, quote, strategic consulting services, $20,000 from Van Heuvelin Strategies, which has interests in at least 6 different Ways and Means issues, and $252,500 from a client of a lobbyist who was simultaneously working for Blackstone to protect the carried interest rate, which allows individuals working in the financial industry to pay a lower tax rate. Oh, I love it. So he paid his son a job. He gave his son, made up a job for his son, paid him out of his campaign fund and hooked him up with lobbyists. That is straight up nepotism. Lobbyists, this is a quote, lobbyists sending huge amounts of money to the son of a particularly powerful politician who has a great deal of control over tax policy reeks of corruption. Morris Pearl, the chair of Patriotic Millionaires, a coalition of wealthy Americans concerned about income inequality, tells Politico. Almost anyone, including the clients of the lobbyists who are concerned about tax policy, would conclude that these lobbyists are trying to curry favor with Representative Neal for their clients. You think? You think? I wonder if Daddy gets his 10%, because you remember that whole bit with Hunter Biden. Oh yeah, the big man's got to get his 10%. Yeah, I wonder if there's a kickback for Richard Neal. That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. And is this him? That's Richard Neal, in charge of the Ways and Means Committee. Democrat, naturally. And like I said, every time I read an article like this, I rarely run across one. If it's a corrupt congressman, a mayor, whatever it is, a district court judge, somebody who's a union rep, whatever it is, hardly ever is it a Republican. And again, I'm not saying that Republicans are above reproach, but there's something about the Democrat Party that really seems to attract people like this. And Country Living has joined us. Glad you could make it today. Just reeks of corruption, as they say. Absolutely. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. But it really seems like that's an ongoing issue, and it makes me really want to study what it is about that party that attracts that type of individual, that they can't help themselves but to get tied up in money and favors to such an extent that they can't even hide it anymore, or don't even try. Or don't even try. And Chillin' Dave is coming today. Glad you could make it, Chillin'. Joining us today. Joined, of course, also by Monkey, who is asleep in the chair behind me, for those of you who can see. There's Monkey, taking his cat nap. And still waiting to hear from the service that I've been working with to find out about bulk spaying and neutering, because they keep putting me off. At least I've got a rapport going. It is not easy. It's not easy, or it's insanely expensive. You know, when you're talking some of these places wanting with spaying and neutering services and vaccinations, damn near $200 an animal. And I'm like, do you want to help them or not? Do you want to help them or not? I can't tell, but yeah, hanging on there, and I'll keep going with that, and I'll keep an update, because I gotta get them under control, or I'll end up with 50 of them in the backwoods, and then that'll be the 18 that I'm dealing with are already too much. It's already a lot to deal with. Just even just pet food, probably about $50 a week just on food. You know, it gets up there. Biden now pandering. You'll love this one. And I got a few things to say about this. This is an ICT News article talking about Biden here. It says, President Biden to issue boarding school apology. More than 150 years after the first Native children were forced to attend Indian boarding schools that robbed them of their family's culture and language, President Joe Biden will issue a long-awaited apology for the dark history that has left generational damage among indigenous peoples. Is he going to cry? Is he going to tell a story about his son? Is he going to talk about how his uncle was eaten by cannibals? Biden is set to present that apology and a plan for helping tribal communities heal from the enduring trauma on Friday, October 25th. That's today at the Gila, or is that Gila? It would be Gila River, right? Indian community in Arizona, marking his first visit to tribal lands as president. I don't think that he's ever been on tribal lands under any capacity. So that would be his first visit, period, if he knows where he is. It's an apology that Native people have been seeking for decades. Quote, this apology is an acknowledgement that the President of the United States sees and hears them, says U.S. Interior Secretary Deb Haaland Laguna Pueblo, whose family members attended Indian boarding schools. I bet none of them are still alive today. This is an acknowledgement of a horrific history. This happened in our country. Okay, everybody knows this happened, and I'm not trying to trivialize this. Everybody knows that this happened in the United States and in Canada and in South America. We know this, all right? I don't see, first of all, you know, and I get a lot of this from when I lived in Kansas. Majority Native Indians don't give a shit about any of this. They do not care. It's just activists and tribal leaders who hem and haw about this stuff, all right? They're the ones that are always complaining. They do not, just like Al Sharpton does not speak for all Black people, tribal leaders and activists do not speak for all Native Indians. I guarantee you 85% of them couldn't give a damn. This is purely for show, to make the party and the administration look good, apologizing for something they have no control over. No control over. It's kind of like, and it makes me think about when the Pope a few years back did a public apology for the Spanish Inquisition. He did not apologize for the Roman Inquisition or the Portuguese Inquisition, by the way, but just specifically for the Spanish Inquisition. If I remember this correctly, someone might know better than me. Someone might know better than me on that. I don't think he apologized for the other Inquisitions, right? Just the Spanish. They were the most prominent, but they were founded in the 15th century. Although they were active, I think they were officially disbanded in the late 1800s, so they were active for almost 300 years. Although they weren't doing the same things in the 1800s that they were doing in the 1500s. But that's beside the point. The Pope is apologizing for them nearly 150 years after they were disbanded. What the hell good does that do anybody now? What does that fix? What does that change? The history's already there and everybody knows it. The church already officially acknowledged that the things that they did and that they were heavy-handed, and that's putting it mildly. What good does this apology do anybody? And how much more federal support can tribal lands possibly get? They're already like sovereign nations. Tuck says we're scrounging to get the kittens fixed. Oh, your kittens? Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy finding services. Flukeman says, do you hunt food for your furry friends? No, I don't hunt for them. Tuck says the party of the Trail of Tears offering crocodile tears today. Chillin says Tufts Animal Hospital in Massachusetts has students do bulk fixings at a local pound in Sterling, Massachusetts. It still wasn't cheap when we had 4 puppies through a rescue done. Too expensive. Yeah, it gets up there. It's expensive. It is expensive. ARN says good news. Bill Gates facing trial in the Netherlands for lying to the public about the C virus. Nice. Nice. Not that I don't know if it'll help anything, but at least you'll frustrate him some. Nature Nerd says Native Americans have a pretty good deal. They own their own property and houses without tax. They basically have their own state or country within a state, so they can be excluded from state taxes. And that's a point that I brought up several times, Nature Nerd, that they are very exclusive. And I know that there's the whole big hullabaloo that goes on about how indigenous people, or the activists claim, they want people to realize that how many innocent young girls are murdered or disappear without a trace from Indian lands, but they will not allow anyone to come in to help to investigate. They will not cooperate with law enforcement. They will not allow FBI, state police, or anybody to enter tribal lands. And they know it's their own people doing it. So they're covering up for their own people. And this is in the US and Canada that happens. All People says Indians don't care about any of the nonsense, catering to activists and grifters. For most of us, Thanksgiving is our favorite holiday. Country Living says white guilt by the left, or pretend, because don't really feel guilty about anything, and they don't care. It's all an act. They're pretending to care. They're pretending to care. For people like this, Deborah Parker Tulip, activists. And again, I will remind you, an activist's job is to pretend to be outraged because that's where the money is. Pretending to speak for her people who probably don't even know who the hell she is and don't care. They might pretend to care if they think they're going to get something out of it. Otherwise, they don't care. Nature Nerd says some tribes get $5,000 to $8,000 a month. If a tribe is a casino, has a casino, they divide up the money. Depends on the setup for the casino. It's different in different places, because I've heard of some casinos on tribal lands really screwing their own people over, really sticking it to their people, making promises that they don't keep. Sounds like any other government to me. Kimberly says the Native Americans also get a royalty check from casinos in states that have Native American owned ones. Back on the same subject there. And Country says, right, pretending to vet pretending to vet more votes or get more votes, that you really think Native Indians are going to vote? You really think? Oh man, they're not. I doubt that most of them are going to vote. I doubt most of them are going to vote. I was holding off on this one because I was wondering if Rodney was going to come in today, because Rodney is in New Zealand, who usually shows up, but I haven't seen him on here. And I wanted to present this article because it is from New Zealand and it's a Reason article. It is Reason is the people are putting the article out, Reason magazine or whatever. This is a big deal. It says New Zealand government punishes gun owners for political beliefs. This is happening. This is happening. So it says 60 under the influence of ideology, 62 firearms license holders with views aligned to the sovereign citizens movement has had their licenses revoked after a police intelligence operation. Catherine Hubbard reported for the Waikato Times on October 13th. Nationally, police identified 1,400 people as acting under the influence of sovereign citizen ideologies, and of that number, 158 were firearms license holders. And it goes on to explain in the article, if you're not familiar with the term sovereign citizen, it is a general description for various people who deny the legitimacy of government and claim to live under common law separate from rules imposed by the state. That is, they go beyond the skepticism of government legitimacy shared by many people, including philosophical anarchists like Michael Huemer, I don't know who that is, and sometimes try to live by their ideas. They might refuse to use license plates and file liens against government officials while wielding garbled legal arguments that they incorrectly think will ward off unimpressed cops and judges. Like anybody else, they're occasionally dangerous, but mostly they're that guy who corners you at a party to tell you about his magic constitutional revelation that will immunize you against income tax. Basically, what's being suggested is these are people that their ideology is that they don't like the idea of big government. They're not necessarily actually doing anything, but because they identify with that political party, the government in New Zealand has specifically targeted them, and they're starting to revoke firearms licenses from these people and confiscate their weapons. ARN says the Amish near Lancaster, Pennsylvania are getting involved with voting this election period. Interesting. Traditionally, they don't really do that. Tuck says, say what you want about what Sovsits? What's that supposed to say? Or sovereign citizens? Is that what you mean? Say what you want about sovereign citizens, but at least they're not commies. And Monkey says sovereign. Yeah, the sovereign citizens is what he meant. Time and again, some form of repression always follows the disarming of the populace, according to JJ. Exactly, and that's what's happening here. They don't fit the political ideology, even though they may not necessarily have done anything wrong. They do not fit the recommended political ideology of New Zealand, and they've been targeted. They're on a list of 1,400 individuals that have been flagged, 158 of which are firearm license holders, and of those, 62 of them have had their weapons confiscated, apparently. So here it is. It says on a list that have firearms stolen by government officials in the future. Oh, okay, a common and persuasive argument against gun registration is that those who comply just put themselves on a list to have their firearms stolen by the government officials in the future, As if to emphasize the point, the New Zealand government recently confiscated firearms licenses and guns. They covered from 62 people because of political ideology. And historically speaking, that never ends well. That usually turns into a complete dictatorship and a completely oppressive system of government. Nature Nerd says, if your populace is armed, no one is going to invade you. Yeah. I don't know if anyone wants to invade New Zealand, but yeah. And Tuck says, I'll trade 500,000 Democrats for one of your most annoying sovereign citizens. Okay, you twisted my arm. 1 million. 500,000, huh? 1 million. I totally get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying. But this is how it starts. And they're going to come and they're actually revoking licenses and confiscating weapons from these people as if they're going to do something dangerous. As if they're going to do something dangerous, even though they have not demonstrated that they were in any regard a threat. And again, we've seen this before. Historically, this does not end well in any country that takes this type of a stance. It does not end well. And especially when you're in a place like New Zealand that can be sort of isolated. I mean, they're essentially an island. They're the down under. That's what they said when I was in Australia. We're not the land down under. That's New Zealand. Nature Nerd says a meme of Bart Simpson says America has 50% of the world's registered guns. That's because in a lot of other places you ain't got to register anything. I wouldn't want to have to register. But I mean, you're registered anyways. If you buy a gun, they know you bought it. They know you bought it. They know you bought ammunition. A lot of states require a license, especially if you're going to carry. So they know who you are. They know who you are. They can find you if they really wanted to. They could find you if they really wanted to. That's a scary thought. Because, something I've talked about on the Prepper University channel before. What are you really going to do? Because I know people like to put up the don't tread on me flag and be like, yeah, you're going to have to pray it for my cold dead hands. But the reality of it is that when you hear a bang on the front door and you look out the window and you see 23 SWAT officers and 5 trucks out front, and they're wearing full tack and body armor and carrying automatic weapons, and you look back into the house and you got a 3 and a 5-year-old sitting there watching TV, guess what? You're probably going to let them take your gun. That's just the stark reality of it. And no one is going to come and rescue you, and no one's going to come and help you. And I know that sounds really hopeless, and I don't mean to make people feel hopeless, because you should try to stand your ground. You should try to stand your ground. And what I mean by stand your ground is try not to let it get to that point. Try not to get it to that point. Don't let it get that far in your state government that they feel confident enough to start doing that. And don't think you're going to call somebody either, because I guarantee you your phone won't work. Right, monkey? Come here. Hi. And we'll take a here we go. Hi, monkey. Hi, it's a monkey break, everybody. He woke up from his nap, and now I guess he wanted to say hello. Here he is. He's a tussling little thing, isn't he? And Country says my guns were lost in a boating accident. They'll still come look for him. They'll still come look for him. Nature Nerd says the West is not free if New Zealand, Canada, Europe, UK, and Brazil are cracking down on political opposition. Absolutely. Right? What do you think? He's just fascinated with the beard. I'll tell you. He can't stop. Watch out for the microphone and stay out of my cup. Don't go in my cup. Leave it alone. Since we're on the subject of corruption, and Kimberly says, "Hi, sweet boy." Yeah, he's a sweetheart. He really is. But his timing, I tell you what, he's coming here to steal the show because for some reason I don't know what he's looking for, but he's determined something is in that beard, and he just needs to jam his nose into it. Hi, buddy. I'm trying to read a story. You're messing me up here. And he's also doing biscuits on my neck with his claws. I must have 500 holes in my neck from him doing that. You trying to shave me? Is that it? As we jump back, we're going to actually jump to Colorado. Hi. Newsweek article. Thousands of Colorado ballots to be re-examined for evidence of fraud. Thousands of votes already cast in Mesa County, Colorado are being re-examined for fraud after election staff discovered at least a dozen fraudulent ballots. Colorado Secretary of State Jenna Griswold said in a news conference, no relation to Clark Griswold, in a news conference on Thursday that a criminal probe had been launched in the county. Quote, it appears that as of now, approximately a dozen voters in Mesa County had their ballots intercepted before they arrived to them and cast without their knowledge. So somebody took their ballots from the mail before delivery, is what that's suggesting. Does that mean that someone at the post office did it? Does that mean that they were never mailed in the first place? The fraud was discovered. Good Lord. The fraud was discovered during the signature verification process when election staff compared signatures on the ballots to the voters' signatures on file. When voters were contacted about the rejected signatures in a process known as curing, election staff discovered that some of the ballots had been fraudulently filled out. Voting by mail has become a contentious and politicized issue in recent years, largely driven by former President Trump. Or I love how they put this, Trump's baseless claims that the election was fraudulent because of this practice. Wow. Prime says, stop putting catnip in your beard. No, I promise you there's no catnip in the beard. I wouldn't do that. But for some reason, he's absolutely fascinated with it. Tuck says he's looking for beard mice. No, there's a bird's nest in there maybe, though. JJ says, did you have a tuna fish sandwich for lunch? No. It's just, I don't know what it is. For some reason, it's comforting to him to get all up in my beard and be weird. Like I said, I wake up with him. I wake up in the middle of the night with him digging in my beard. I don't know why the hell he does it. It must remind him of something. Maybe it reminds him of nesting or whatever. So now, because they've been finding these ballots that it turns out never reached the people they were intended for and were not properly filled out, they were fraudulently cast, they've got to recall all of them and check them. Thousands and thousands of them. It says as many as 30,000 they think they're going to have to check. I would like to know, and it does not say, if it was a Democrat or Republican nomination that was cast. Who did those fraudulent ballots vote for? Harris or Trump? That's what I'd like to know. And Kelly says, nice cat. And Nature Nerd says, why are Republican states like Texas and Florida embracing early voting when they made such a big fuss in 2020? Every state is. I have no idea. Everybody is pushing it. Vote early, vote early, vote early. And it's like, no, I don't like that idea, because while those votes are sitting there, while those ballots are sitting there, you don't know what could happen to them. They could disappear. They could be altered. You don't know what the hell could happen. Country says Trump's baseless claims, 150 million plus votes with about 139 million registered voters. Pretty easy to spot the fraud. They're not baseless at all. He had a legitimate concern, but that's Newsweek for you. Kimberly says their kitty loves to snuggle in her hair. His name is Calogero from the movie A Bronx Tale. And Flukeman says, anyone seen the dodo video of a cat gets along with the husband but not the wife until she puts on a fake beard? No, I've never seen that. I have never seen that. What do you think? Is it the beard, buddy? I don't know what your problem is, monkey. I don't know what your problem is. You gonna get down now? Here. Go do cat things somewhere. Go do different cat things. Oh my God. But that is a major concern, and it should be a big concern, and they ought to take it seriously. And it would be fantastic, I think. And you never know. It's all speculation. If Trump were to win and launch a legitimate investigation, and it were discovered that he was cheated in 2020, wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something, monkey? What do you think, buddy? You're fortunate you're a cat. You don't have to worry about these things. And one more human interest article. Human interest article. Man, I could go on and on about this. And this is a Euro News article. Companies are firing Generation Z workers soon after hiring them, and what's behind their job market struggles. You know, I could speculate without even reading the article yet, because I haven't read this yet. I just thought it looked interesting. Often I don't read the articles ahead of time. They're lazy, they're entitled, they have bad attitudes, they're late for work, or they call in sick frequently. Anybody want to guess? They're bad at the jobs. They're really not ready to enter the workforce. Jericho says, did you ever get your pen back from Monkey? I found it last night, and it was in a cardboard box in the pantry. I had an empty cardboard box sitting in there, and that's where I found it. The Nature Nerd says 12,000 votes having to be rechecked due to mail-in votes is unacceptable. Yeah, it shouldn't happen. Or 30,000 votes having to be rechecked now. And there's your Gen Z workers. Yeah, there's your problem right there. Anyways, it says Generation Z is beginning to enter a workforce that isn't fully prepared for them. I think that that it's the Generation Z that's not prepared. As many recent graduates face complaints about how they fit into the workplace, employees report increasing hesitancy in hiring them, according to a recent report by the education and career advisory platform Intelligent. The report, which was based on a survey of nearly 1,000 hiring managers, found that 1 in 6 employers were reluctant to hire a Gen Z worker, mainly due to their reputation for being entitled and easily offended. There it is. And this is, I can go with this survey better than I would with a lot of other surveys, because, normally I don't trust a survey if they said they interviewed 1,000 people, right? Which these people did, but they interviewed 1,000 hiring managers. But how many people does a hiring manager deal with? If you're in HR, how many people do you deal with weekly? Depending upon how big the company is, an HR manager may have, in the last couple of years, had to interview 1,000 or more people. So there's a lot of experience there with interviewing 1,000 hiring managers, as opposed to some bullshit poll where they ask questions of like 760 people, and that's supposed to represent the whole country. And, like, for example, when I worked at Family Dollar, and I probably did like a dozen interviews a week trying to fill slots because we always needed at least one person. And the primary reason I couldn't get anybody was because they all failed the damn drug test, which caused a lot of problems because the drug tests were paid for out of the store's finances. And back in the early 2000s, that was about $20 to $25 a test. It's not as cheap as it is now. $20 to $25 a test. And to have like 10 or 12 people a week fail that test, it was a big drain on the store. And of course, the less that affects how much the store earnings are, because it came right out of the store. The company didn't cover that, which affects how much we can pay people, which affects the ability of having a full staff, which is why I often ended up working on Sunday completely by myself. Flukeman says, doesn't matter what Trump does, formal investigation on JFK assassination, moon landings, and etc. Democrats will say it's fake. Tuck says, Generation Z is as tough as nails. Acrylic nails, that is. Country says, parents have to teach the kids work ethic. Starts at home. Our teens and early 20 kids are hard workers with ethics because we taught them to be. Exactly. And that it does. It doesn't just fall on society or public school. It falls on the parents as well. Article goes on to say, moreover, more than half said that this generation, which refers to the people born between 1997 and the early 2010s, lacks, there it is, a strong work ethic, struggles with communication, does not handle feedback well, and is generally unprepared for the demands of the workforce. I am not surprised. It says Gen Z doesn't know basic skills for social interaction with customers, clients, and co-workers, nor workplace etiquette. As a result, it's up to the company to properly onboard new employees and give ample training. In addition, the boss needs to act as a coach as well as a manager. There's only so much coaching you can do. Nature Nerd says the turn rate at Family Dollar was high because the salary is way below minimum wage. Well, it's at minimum wage where I was. I couldn't afford to pay much more. There was no budget for it. All I could do was fill in hours. And how many hours can you fill in? I was already up to between 60 to 80 hours a week because I couldn't fill in the gaps. They really bare bones those stores. Dollar General does the same thing. Dollar Tree, any of those stores. It's a low salary, and it's a skeleton crew most of the time. But yeah, this doesn't surprise me at all, especially with my experience with JJA. Poor communication, entitled, angry, doesn't understand basics. They can't perform menial tasks. Late all the time. Argumentative. How much coaching are you expected to do? Country says, as a former boss, you can add babysitter to that list of what a boss has to do. Yeah, because most of them will shirk responsibilities too. They'll half-ass their way through everything and leave it for the next guy who isn't going to do it either. Fluke Man says, is it true some Gen Z are afraid to talk on the phone to operators because they're used to using apps? I don't know if they're afraid to talk to an operator, but they have a difficulty communicating their thoughts. So it's a scary proposition for them to try to have to explain themselves to somebody. And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. Thousands and thousands of years developing language to create a generation of people that doesn't know how to speak. Or communicate, I should say. Monkey, you still in here? Monkey's still there. He's behind me. So with that, yes, we are at the top of the hour. So I will go ahead and start signing off. Again, you were listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find the live portion Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, on Coffee Talk and Prepper University. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com. I'll, again, try to keep people abreast of what's going on with our shelter cats. And Thomas is here. Thomas, you're late. You're late, Thomas. We're closing out. But the replay should stay on. So again, thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. As always, hope you got something out of the conversation. And we will catch you again.